Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to what is today? Today is Friday, the 20th of December, 2013. I am Michael Herzog with the American Awakening, coming to you, well, I'm not going to tell you where I'm coming from. You can kind of guess. But anyway, Jessica Clowers, welcome to the American Awakening. Glad to see you today.
Thank you.
You know what I'm going to do, Jesse? I am going to tone this down. You know, Jessica Clowers doesn't flow off the tongue quite as well as Jesse Clowers. Okay, so I'm going to shorten Jessica to Jesse, and from here on out, you're going to be known as Jesse Clowers, okay?
Okay.
Folks, I want to mention to you, well, I think it was about January 26th of this year, I had Chris Maples on my radio program, and by the way, it's in the archives of the American Awakening. You can go in there and take a look at it at your leisure. I have all my archives in there at theamericanawakening.org. And I did an interview with Chris. He's the producer of a documentary called The Great Culling. For those of you who haven't seen it, I would strongly urge you to go in and take a look at it, because a lot of what this show is about today is about that and about fluoride, okay? And there's a couple of other things that have been thrown in the mix here that through my research I've found out, and we're going to share that with you today. Now, before we go any further, there's been pro and con about fluoride, mostly pro. Back since, I think it was the early 50s, maybe late 50s, there was a big to-do about putting fluoride in our water because, according to the experts, it was good for your teeth, prevented cavities. And, you know, ultimately, the powers that be won out, and there's been fluoride in our water in most big cities throughout the United States ever since. So I wanted to bring some of this stuff to your attention today. And in the meantime, before I go any further, I'm going to show you a couple of clips, okay, as a kind of a trip down memory lane, a reminder of what we've been told, what we've been propagandized for nigh on what, 40, 50 years about the positive effects of fluoride. So with that, take a look at these clips, then we'll continue.
And it's one of the most inexpensive ways to really cut down on dental decay.
Anything we can do to help prevent cavities on children, I think is very important.
Absolutely, fluoride is safe, it's effective.
Fluoridation of community water is extremely safe and extremely effective in preventing tooth decay. Science is on the side of fluoride being safe and effective. There is no controversy about this in the scientific community.
Okay. For those of you who are old enough, that should bring back some memories. And to this day, folks, if you go into a dentist office, they will still ask you to rinse with fluoride. This has been an ongoing thing for the last, 50 years or so. Now, again, before we go any further, I want to bring up another reminder here. When we go to the gas pump, we go to fill up our tank, whether it's regular, whether it's premium unleaded or whatever, but it's all unleaded. Well, it wasn't always that way. I'm going to take you now to a clip, and I think it was put out in 1954. It was a big push for the difference between regular gasoline and ethyl gasoline. They called it ethyl back then. And this is a clip from a guy that used to be a very popular sports announcer. There was a big push on national TV to try to get the American public to use ethyl in their car as opposed to regular gasoline. Later on, they found out, there was an article, a study that came out in 1991, as a lot of you may recall, they took the lead out of gasoline and started making it unleaded. So you can't buy lead in gasoline anymore. There's a reason for that. So I'm going to take this time, I'm going to let you take a minute and watch this clip from 1954 from Mel Allen, the famous sportscaster back then, promoting ethyl gasoline with lead in it. So take a look.
This is Mel Allen. I've had the pleasure of reporting many leading sports events over the years, but today I want to show you something that's going to make a great deal of difference in the performance of your car. It's an actual demonstration, and an amazing one, of what ethyl gasoline can do for your car. Approaching this hill is a car that has been tuned up for most efficient performance, the way yours should be. But this car can draw its gasoline from either of two containers. This one contains ethyl gasoline, and this one contains ordinary gasoline. Now, let's see the important difference in the performance of this car using those two gasolines. We're climbing this hill running on ordinary gasoline. Listen to that knob. And see how we have to cut our speed to get rid of it? Now we're switching over to ethyl gasoline as the car continues up the hill. Is there not? Let's listen. No, sir. The speedometer picks up speed at the touch of a toe, thanks to ethyl gasoline. Now this test should prove to you, as it did to me, that if you fill up your tank with ethyl gasoline, why, you'll get the most efficient performance from your car. And that's doubly important these days. So why don't you do what I do? Fill up wherever you see this famous ethyl emblem. There's a powerful difference. Take it from me, Mel Allen.
For those of you that are old enough, it brings back some memories, doesn't it? But then a report came out, 1991, and I'm not going to read the entire report, but I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from it, just one. It says, lead has long been recognized as a harmful environmental pollutant. In late 1991, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services called lead the #1 environmental threat to the health of children in the U.S. And so for those of you who are old enough to know, ultimately they took lead out of gasoline and now we have unleaded. Now why did they do that? Because there was many deaths due to lead in gasoline and also lead-based paint. As a matter of fact, anybody that goes in the home that has anything to do with remodeling or walk-in bathtubs or not sterilist, but anything that requires any remodeling doing to a home, they have to, it's required by law that they have to give a pamphlet to the customer talking about lead-based paint and the possible harm that can come if they have a home that was built prior to 1978. This was all introduced by the EPA because of a national outcry to get lead out of paint and to get lead out of gasoline because it was killing people. Now, why do I tell you this? Because this ties in with the fluoride issue. We've been drinking fluoridated water for the last 50 years. We've been told by the medical professionals and experts that fluoride is good for your teeth. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you one more clip here. Okay, and this is a campaign that the president's own wife, Michelle Obama, came on. I believe it was the Today Show, if I remember. And a lot of you may remember this. It's very, very recent. So they're still pushing us to drink the water. Now, I want you to watch this clip. And when you get through with that, keep that in mind as we go through this program. And at the end of the program, you ask yourself, why is this woman on TV promoting us to drink more water? And do these people, Michelle and Barack Obama, really have our interest at heart? Take a look. We'll be right back.
With a brand new initiative today, and the First Lady, Michelle Obama, sent us a special message about it. Take a look.
Hello, Today Show viewers, and good morning from the White House. Today I'm working to inspire Americans from all across the country to drink more water. That's why I've stolen Matt and Savannah's mugs and exchanged them with water glasses. Water is the best and easiest choice we can make to feel energized, focused, healthy, and refreshed. You are what you drink, and when you drink water, you're at your best. So drink up.
Mrs. Obama, thank you very much.
If you say so.
Only problem with that is she also sent the same message to Kathy Lee and Hogan. Drink up, and now they're not even going to be here for this.
They take a different interpretation
How
of
much
that.
water do you drink a day?
Oh, I don't know. Probably I try not.
Okay, folks, you just got through watching a clip from Michelle Obama, Barack Obama's own wife, pushing you, and it wasn't just the Today Show. She was all over mainstream media, pushing us no longer than a few months ago to consume more water, drink as much water as you can. Now, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. What I also want you to do is to take a look at your own water supply. Now, Jessica, you did a little investigation on the water supply in which you live. So why don't you take a few minutes and tell the listening audience a little bit about that and go from there.
Well, I wanted to start this week by taking a look at my own water supply. Is it true? Is fluoride really being added to my drinking water that comes out of my faucet? And if so, how much fluoride am I drinking? Me and my family personally. Take a look. When I began my investigation this week, I wanted to find out what was coming out of my faucet in my house. So I looked at my utility bill, and I found the website and began my research. What I am looking for is a report that shows something to do with my drinking water quality. And when I click on the page and I scroll down to the bottom of the screen, I find PDF files that give me water quality data reports. So I click on the one that applies to my water bill. And now I'm looking at the drinking water report from 2012. As I scroll down, now I'm looking at a chart that has the contaminants listed on the left. Fluoride is number 5 on the list. And over to the right, you see MCLG, the maximum contaminant level goal, and MCL being the limit. Both numbers being at number 4, that compliance was achieved. Over to the right, you see that the possible source, it came from natural deposits and treatment additive. So for my question as far as, is fluoride being added to the water that comes out of my faucet in my home, that answer has just proven to be yes. So I continued my search and I decided to go to my state website, indiana.gov. I ran across the 2012 Annual Compliance Report for Indiana Public Water Supply Systems. And I scrolled down and I saw a table that shows violation summary for Indiana Public Water Supplies. And it has a bunch of letters that really just don't make any sense off to the left. And I noticed these numbers, 24 and 12. And off to the left it says IOC is the abbreviation. So I scrolled down and I checked the abbreviation. The violation is inorganic chemicals. These inorganic chemicals defined as contaminants in this report are fluoride, arsenic, barium, mercury, a number of other contaminants that are in our water supply. Finally, I pulled up the public water supply standards, and this is what I found. 2 milligrams per liter of fluoride can be added to the public water supply system, with the exception of schools. 5.5 milligrams per liter, which is equal to 5.5 parts per million, is the limit for our school systems. I know what you're thinking. Did I read that right? Let me read that for you again. Unless the public water system is a participant in an Indiana State Department of Health approved school fluoride adjustment program for which the concentration of fluoride in a school water supply shall not exceed 5.5 milligrams per liter. You can look these standards up for yourself at epa.gov. The same fluoride that is harmful to children in toothpaste, fluoride treatments, and now our water supply is regulated in higher doses in our schools under the Fluoride Adjustment Program. And last but not least, I looked up the symptoms of fluoride poisoning, which include abdominal pain, abnormal taste, convulsions, diarrhea, drooling, headache, heart attack, irregular heartbeat, nausea, shallow breathing, slow heartbeat, tremors, vomiting, and weakness. After my investigation this week, I was shocked. I can say that I did not expect to find that much fluoride in my water. I did expect to find some, regulated of course, maybe around 1 part per million, but nowhere near 4 or 6 parts per million.
So after watching this clip, I want to encourage all of you out there to grab a copy of your water bill, locate the website, it should be on the back, and go to your water company website and look for those PDF files of your water and what's in your water and what you are drinking. And do some more research. Go to the EPA.gov. Those are the federal guidelines for what the city should be putting in your water according to the government. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Jesse Clowers. Jesse Clowers. Okay, what this program is about today, now remember, I want you to recall, our president's wife was pushing us to drink more water. And also I want to remind you that in my website, theamericanawakening.org, you can go into videos, scroll down to Fluoride, and watch the great culling that Chris Maple produced. It's about an hour and a half video, and it'll give you folks, if you haven't already seen it, a rude awakening to what we're actually drinking. And what we have to realize is that back in the 50s when they started this thing, they were using sodium fluoride, which was an industrial waste put out by the aluminum companies, and it has now gone even farther than that. They're shipping this stuff in as hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's an industrial waste that literally will eat through metal, titanium, glass, wood, and they're putting this in our water. Okay, so with that, I'm not going to go through them all. But I believe we have this article posted on theamericanawakening.org under news articles, and I'm going to invite you to go in and read it, the whole thing for yourself, because I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to put out some excerpts from it. So there's 50 of them. Number one, fluoride is the only chemical added to water for the purpose of medical treatment. Now, when you get into medical treatment, you realize that when we have what is called informed consent, we go to the doctor has to disclose, or is supposed to disclose to us, all the pros and all the cons of any medication that he would prescribe for us. What the main effects are, in other words, what he's prescribing it for, and also the side effects of it. That's required by law. Well, fluoridation is unethical because it goes against the informed consent. It is forcing you and I and Jesse to take a medication irrespective of our consent. Okay, now if you think that bottled water is going to save you, no. There's a test that you can do to test for the fluoride in bottled water. And bottled water is another issue that I'm going to go into a little bit later. But the key issue here, Jesse, the dose cannot be controlled. Okay, it doesn't make any difference whether you're 50 years old or whether you're 30 years old or whether you're 2 years old. If you're drinking water out of the tap, Jesse, it's uncontrolled as far as the dosage. Everybody's getting the same dose. Children absorb it faster than adults absorb it. The absorption and where it is stored goes into our bones. There's so many side effects, so many detrimental effects to fluoride, which I'm going to list here, and it also ties in with what I found through my research is an illness that has popped up, what would you say, Jessica, over the last 15, 20 years or so? I know your mother suffers from fibromyalgia.
Well, it began with fibromyalgia. I don't think they really knew what she had. She went through a series of tests where she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, lupus, and now come to find out she's got rheumatoid arthritis. And her doctor even stated for her age, it's a little young for those symptoms.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is I did a little bit of research on that very issue. And so I'm gonna pause on this part of it, and I'm going to share with you what I found about the symptoms of fibromyalgia. Now, you may or may not know somebody out there that's got fibromyalgia, but I've heard that term thrown around more widely in the last 4 or 5 years than I have ever since my existence on this planet, which will be 64 years come next show, Monday. But I want to read something and see if you can connect the dots here, folks. First of all, I went in and I was looking at websites as far as how many cases of fibromyalgia have been diagnosed. And what I found was it is difficult to say how many new cases of fibromyalgia are diagnosed each year because there is no reporting system. However, we do know that fibromyalgia is one of the leading causes of pain and disability. It's the third most prevalent rheumatological disorder in the United States, and they often occur with other rheumatic conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, systematic lupus. Isn't that? Is this ringing a bell? Didn't you just say?
Yes.
When we go to the doctor and we're having these symptoms, which I'm going to read off to you, it's interesting that the doctors, and I know you've gone through this, or your mother has gone through this for the past 5 years or so, that they throw every treatment road known to mankind. They, I believe, did they not put her on steroids?
She was on steroids for years, and they had to take her off of those because it takes a toll on your body after so long. Yeah.
Okay, so she was on steroids. Did they not? They were giving. They had to offer her some kind of a shot at some point.
She was giving herself injections. Her last option that she was given was, it's like a chemotherapy treatment.
Okay, so the system or the symptoms of fibromyalgia. I believe I had. Well, maybe we didn't print that off. What's interesting about this, folks, is the symptoms of fibromyalgia are the exact symptoms of fluoride poisoning. I'm going to read a few of them off to you. Symptoms of fibromyalgia: chronic muscle pain, muscle spasms or tightness, moderate or severe fatigue or decreased energy, insomnia or waking up feeling just as tired as you did when you went to sleep. Now, keep that in mind for a minute because I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to go over here to symptoms of fluoride poisoning. You know what the arthritis, stiff, painful joints with or without swelling, painful feet in the morning, bony, painful lumps where tendons and ligaments attach to bones, calcifications of connective tissue on X-ray, especially with pain and reduced range of motion. And another, get this, Jessica, another symptom under fluoride poisoning is, what does that say?
Fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia. So somebody goes to the doctor with joint pain, with muscle pain, with fatigue and so forth. The doctor diagnoses it as fibromyalgia. That's a nice term to throw out there, and starts treating the symptom as opposed to looking for the cure. No doctor ever says, well, this is a symptom of fluoride poisoning. You have to understand, folks, from what I've read, is that the fluoride poisoning is ingested into your bones. When we walk or run or do exercises or whatever, our bone, if you take a human bone and you feel it, it's very, very smooth. And as our muscles go back and forth across it, that's the elasticity with which they have causes to have a fluid movement. Well, what happens evidently with fluoride when it's ingested in the bones is it makes these bumpy, lumpy things on your bones, so it hurts when you move it. Another interesting fact is that how does Social Security view fibromyalgia? Now, fibromyalgia or fluoride poisoning, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jessica, I believe there are unknown amount of cases of fibromyalgia in this country now, upwards of Lord knows how many. I know of 5 or 6 people that I've been affiliated with that have been diagnosed with that just in my walk and journey across this planet. Do you know anybody else? Have you heard of anybody else besides your mother?
Actually, a few nights ago, I found out a friend of mine who's 37 years old has been diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
So they're diagnosing fibromyalgia with the exact same symptoms as fluoride poisoning. And how does Social Security look at fibromyalgia when it comes to, being disabled and getting a disability Social Security check? It says that traditionally, when a disability claims examiner reviews a case in which the only allegation or the reason for the disability was fibromyalgia, the outlook for an initial approval was poor. In other words, they're going to turn it down. It has to be tied in with something else. Now, take all this in consideration, folks, because it is my belief from my research, and I have to put a caveat in here. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just saying go in and do the research for yourself. I'm going to read a little bit further into the 50 reasons why we do not want fluoride in our water. And you take that, as far as yourself, as far as somebody you know, and as far as, doing something about it. Okay, we need to be clear on this, and we need to be educated on what's happening to us and how long it's been happening to us, and all of these interesting diseases and disabilities that have been popping up over the last 40 or 50 years, and the medical profession misdiagnosing. So, as we've mentioned before, Jesse, the dosage cannot be controlled. One size fits all. Okay, and remember, it used to be what do you call it? Oh, I lost my train of thought now. It used to be sodium fluoride. It was an aluminum waste that was going into the fluoride. And now it's hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a total industrial waste from a lot of mining, a lot of aluminum byproducts, and so forth. So it goes into everybody, regardless of the age, regardless of your health, regardless of the vulnerability. And by the way, folks, you can ingest fluoride from many sources other than water. Now, it's interesting, Jesse. Through the week, I was talking to you about this, and I started mentioning to you the fluoridated water and also other products that are on your grocery store shelves, folks, that have fluoride in them. And also in the bottled water that we drink, and some other detrimental effects of bottled water. And now I've got you running around looking at the. I've got Jessica looking at the boxes before she eats anything, and she goes to the grocery store and she's doing an investigative research with her magnifying glass before she before she buys any products, and she comes home with what for a long time you had been buying, I believe it was Nestle's bottled water.
Yes.
Okay. I noticed that you came home with some Evian the other day.
Thanks to you. I'm eating my cereal thinking about all the arsenic I'm ingesting.
Arsenic, what is it? Arsenic, lead, fluoride. I mean, there's a whole mess of poisonous chemicals that our lovely First Lady Michelle Obama is encouraging us to drink more of. Does that give us a clue, folks, of what's really going on here? Okay. Let's see. Receive fluoride from any other sources besides water. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that, but I would strongly urge you to start taking a look at the boxes in the grocery store of stuff that you're buying and, not giving it a second of thought and throwing it in the shopping cart and so forth. Because any fluoride in any amount, okay, 1 part per million of fluoride is too much. 0.07 parts per million, 0.01 parts per million is too much because it's an industrial waste. Now, let's talk about mother's milk for a moment. Okay, it says that the level in mother's milk is very low. Okay, so evidently there's a filtering process. If a woman gets pregnant, she has a baby, and she's breastfeeding the child, there's a very low instance of fluoridation in the mother's milk. There are no benefits to a bottle-fed baby. But next time you go to the grocery store, now did you bottle feed or did you breastfeed your son?
I bottle fed.
You bottle fed. Now, did you have any idea when you were bottle feeding your son that there was more fluoride in that than the breast milk?
No, because I used the nursery water. I thought I was safe from anything. I didn't use tap water.
It's interesting. Did you read the ingredients on the nursery water?
No.
Okay. Folks,
I thought it was safe. It's for babies.
And this is the vast majority of the American public that think it's safe. We go by what the CDC tells us. We go by what the FDA tells us. On the labeling in the grocery stores, it'll say FDA approved. That means nothing because the pharmaceutical lobby is in there up to their eyeballs. It's a revolving door. There are pharmaceutical representatives that are on the FDA. Okay, they get this stuff approved just because they have a lobby, they have backing, and they're getting paid by the pharmaceuticals to get this stuff approved. So just by virtue of the fact that a quote expert tells you it's okay, don't believe it. Read between the lines because if you go into a pharmacy or you go into the grocery store and you pick up a bottle of baby's water with a nice little teddy bear or a SpongeBob on it and a nice little colorful thing that says this is great for baby, you'll find out that it has 3 or 4 times more fluoride in a person that's 1/5 our size that is having a detrimental effect on that baby's health. There are so many detrimental effects to the health or your health to the ingestion of fluoride that I'm not even going to list them all, okay? But as Jessie sits here and she tells us the same thing about bottle feeding our baby, not because you're stupid, it's because you just trusted. You just believed what the experts told you. When you have a, quote, first lady on television that is telling you to drink more water, after I get through telling you all of the different detrimental effects to fluoride in the water, you're going to have to scratch your head and ask yourself, why is this lady doing this? Why is she on here encouraging us to drink more poison? With that, page 2, as Paul Harvey would say. Let's see. No health agency in fluoridated countries is monitoring the fluoride exposure, nor are they monitoring the side effects. There are no regular measurements being made of the levels of fluoride in anybody's urine, blood, bones, hair, or nails. There has never been, folks, a single randomized controlled trial to demonstrate fluoridation's effectiveness on safety. There's never been one. Nobody's ever run a study that says, well, maybe we should take a second look at this. Okay. Now, I'm not going to use the premise of this program today to go into a lot of the political reasons why. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. But they're putting this in our water supply against our wishes, against our informed consent, and saying drink more of it. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but Jesse, you may or may not know, in World War II, they used fluoride. They put fluoride in the water in the prison camps. Okay, they did this to dumb down the prisoners, to make them lethargic, to make them docile, to make them have cloudy thinking. Okay, to keep them more in line. So, fluoridation's role in the decline of tooth decay is in serious doubt. All right. Now, what did you just see at the beginning of this program? We showed a couple clips. Okay, dentists on there saying, yes, fluoride's good for your teeth. We think it's great, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fluoridation's role in the decline of tooth decay is in serious doubt. The research has showed little, if no difference in tooth decay among children in fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities. Goes on to say that, let's see, it's 0.6% decayed, missing, or filled surfaces in a permanent tooth in a child aged 5 to 17. That's less than one tooth surface and less than 1% of the 100 plus tooth surfaces available in a child's mouth. All of this, and they're spending all of this money to put this hydrofluorosilicic acid in our water. Think about it, folks. Tooth decay in high and low income communities that have been fluoridated for years. Low income neighborhoods. They don't have a choice. They can't afford to even drink bottled water, which in a lot of cases has less fluoride in it than in the bottled water. Again, as Jesse, as you mentioned in your report, go in and look for yourself, folks. Go into the EPA.gov, look at your community, look and see. Did you not tell me when you were doing this report that in essence Indianapolis was actually in violation of the EPA regulations? And
well, when I got on the city water website, it showed they were okay. They weren't in violation. They met all the regulations just like they were supposed to. And it wasn't until I started doing the deeper digging where I went into my state website and I saw that they had violations, and they listed it in confusing format. Inorganic chemicals was the violation. There was some odd number like 24 and 12, and that includes fluoride, barium, mercury, arsenic, all kinds of...
Mercury, that same stuff they put in our vaccines. Oh, yeah. I see. Okay. With that, and folks, tooth decay does not go up when fluoridation is stopped. It goes on to say where fluoridation has been discontinued in the communities of Canada, East Germany, Cuba, Finland, dental decay has not increased, but has generally continued to decrease. This is a article by Kunzel and Fisher in 1997, Kunzel in 2000, and Seppa in 2000. The tooth decay was coming down before fluoridation started. Modern research shows that decay rates were coming down before fluoridation was introduced in Australia and New Zealand, and have continued to decline even after its benefits would have been maximized. The studies that launched fluoridation were methodologically flawed. Did I say that right? Methodologically flawed. How did it get in there? Why did it get in there? Well, the early trials were heavily criticized for their poor methodology and poor choice of control communities. This is articles that were put out by Dr. Stefano in 1954, Sutton in 59, 60, and 96, Ziegelbecker in 1970. According to Dr. Hubert Arnold, a statistician from the University of California at Davis, the early fluoridation trials are, and I quote, especially rich in fallacies, improper design, invalid use of statistical methods, omissions of contrary data, and just plain muddle-headedness and hebetude, unquote. Serious questions have also been raised about Trendley Deans, the father of fluoridation's famous 21-city study from 1942, and this is put out by Ziegelbacher in 1981. Let's see, it says the children are being overexposed to fluoride. A little bit of background, not a lot, but ultimately how it came to be was that the Mellon Institute had strong ties to Alcoa Aluminum. I believe it was because of their CEO, and they're the ones that put out these reports that omitted the false report or the contrary reports, and they ultimately voted to put it in there anyway. And basically it was a money scam or money game, to my understanding, because it was a game to get rid of their industrial waste. Alcoa Aluminum didn't know where to get rid of this industrial waste, so they developed this scheme to put it in the water and tell us it was good for our teeth. How does that make you feel, Jesse? Okay. Goes on to say that children are being overexposed to fluoride. Now I'm going to get into let's go back to the highest doses of fluoride are going into bottle-fed babies. Remember, we talked about this a few minutes ago. Because of their sole reliance on liquids for their food intake, infants consuming formula made with fluoridated water have the highest exposure to fluoride by body weight in the population. And because infant exposure to fluoridated water has been repeatedly found to be a major risk factor for developing dental fluorosis later in life, a number of dental researchers have recommended that parents of newborns not use fluoridated water when reconstituting formula. And parents be advised that formula should be made with low or no grade fluoride. So again, when you go into the grocery store or you go into the pharmacy and you look at that one aisle that's for infants, that's got the formula, and it's got the baby diapers, and it's got the water and so forth, pay close attention to what's on those bottles, how they dress it up, how they put a SpongeBob, or how they put a teddy bear, how they put, what is that little bear's name? I can't remember. I'm not a kid anymore. But and then you read down at the bottom of them, it'll tell you that it has double or triple the fluoride in it for baby's health. How many of you have, during the course of conversation, out and about, talking to somebody and having them smile at you, have seen these dark spots or really white spots on somebody's teeth? Have you ever seen that, Jesse?
I know a family member like that.
That is fluoridation poisoning in the teeth. And you know what's sick about this, folks, is the federal government knows about this. The federal government knows about it, and the lobby, they don't do anything about it, because what are they going to do about it? How many billions of dollars are going to be lost in the profits that are being made by buying this industrial waste and putting it into our water supply? I don't know about you, but that makes me sick.
Well, I'd like to insert something here.
Go ahead.
Okay. This just strikes me as odd, but when you go to the dentist and you get the fluoride treatment, you're not supposed to swallow it, right? And then,
yeah, I remember that.
And then my son, he's 5 years old. When he brushes his teeth, it's always, don't swallow the toothpaste, because on the back there's that little warning label that reads, harmful if swallowed, contact poison control, whatnot. So my question is, if fluoride is so good for our teeth, now it may be on contact with our teeth, why are we ingesting it? If it's so harmful, why is it being added to our water?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Jesse, because I remember when I was a young lad in the dentist chair, I remember the dentist's name, Dr. Moss. And he used to call my cavities sugar bugs. And by the way, I had a lot of them. Back when I used to love to eat sugar. Another story in itself. But aside from that, I remember those days. And I remember at the end, they would always come in and they'd hand me this little cup of, I can't remember whether it was red or blue. I think it was red. Was it red? Is it red? And they would say, here, rinse with, this is a fluoridated rinse, but don't swallow it. They would warn me then, don't swallow it.
Well, they had the trays where they put the fluoride in the trays and then, conform your teeth to it, and you're sitting there and you can't open your mouth for 30 seconds or so. When you're done, you can't eat for 30 minutes because of the fluoride treatment.
And it's, and I also read that some dentists are actually mixing in the fluoride in the amalgam, which is another story, to put cavities in people's teeth. The amalgam has mercury in it, which, studies have shown that it actually attributes to Alzheimer's disease. But these dentists, folks, do your own research. Take the time when you go to the dentist, ask them straight up. But don't just listen to their answer. Watch their body language. See if they actually can look you in the face, come straight out and tell you that fluoride is good for you. Because I have an idea that a lot of these dentists now know, or they have a good idea that this isn't really good for you.
Well, last time I took my son to the dentist, they wanted to do the fluoride treatment on him. And I told them no. They looked at me like I was nuts and there was something wrong with me. I was a bad parent because I didn't want my son to have the fluoride treatment.
It's brainwashing, folks, is all I can say. But I'll tell you what, going on here, let me get into this because we've got, I really don't want to do more than an hour here, and we're already, I don't know, probably 35, 40 minutes. So it says dental fluorosis may be an indicator of wider systemic damage. There have been many suggestions as to the possible biochemical mechanisms underlying the development of dental fluorosis by many studies, and they are complicated for the lay reader. It goes on to say that fluoride may damage the brain. Now, according to the National Research Council in 2006, it is apparent that fluorides have the ability to interfere with the functions of the brain. And in a review from literature commissioned by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, fluoride has been listed among about 100 chemicals for which there is substantial evidence of developmental neurotoxicity. Now, I read this, and I'm looking at reports that are coming out by the EPA or the FDA or the CDC or whatever, and they're basically coming out and saying, yeah, this isn't very good for you. Okay, go ahead.
Keep in mind that the investigation that I did this week, I made it a point to use all government websites. Now, if you look closely at that video clip again earlier in the segment, you'll see that all of my research was indiana.gov, epa.gov. It all ended with .gov because I wanted to see what exactly the FDA was saying, the state was saying. They all contradict each other.
They all contradict each other. These are coming out on government websites, yet you go to the dentist and the dentist looks at you like you're from another planet if you object to having fluoride put on your son's teeth.
Right.
Folks, is it me or is there something wrong? Is there something wrong with this equation? Going on here, fluoride may lower your IQ. Now, there have been 33 studies done from China, Iran, India, and Mexico that have reported an association between fluoride exposure and reduced IQs. One of these studies, it was Lin in 1991, indicates that even moderate levels of fluoride exposure, i.e. 0.9 parts per million, in the water can exacerbate the neurological defects of iodine deficiency. Other studies have found that IQ reductions of 1.9 parts per million, 0.3 to 3.0 parts per million, and it goes on and on and on. Many different studies. There's about 15 of them in here. I'm not going to read them all. In the Ding study, which 1 part per million increase in fluoride in the urine was associated with a loss of 0.59 IQ points. None of these studies indicate the adequate margin of safety to protect all children from drinking artificially fluoridated water from this effect. Do you think they're trying to dumb us down? Do you think that's why Hitler used them in the prison camps to not to dumb down, but to make the prisoners of war docile? Okay, and they're putting all of this out in the guise of it protecting our teeth and making us have less cavities.
Doesn't that just seem silly to you, though? Do you really think they care that much about our smile?
Good point. When's the last time you smiled at a government official, folks? Okay, and what kind of response did you? I remember the last time I did it. It was Bureau of Motor Vehicles. I smiled at them, and they looked at me like the same way they looked at you, like I was from. You're not supposed to smile at a government official. There's something wrong with you. You need a mental evaluation. Okay. All right. Let's see. Going on here. Fluoride may cause IQ neurotoxic effects. Fluoride affects the pineal gland. Now, you talk to any psychic, and they'll tell you the pineal gland is like the third eye. But that is what gives, I think, a woman, what do they call it? woman's instinct. Is that what it was?
Mother's instinct.
Mother's instinct or woman's instinct. But the pineal gland it's like it's a form of discernment. It's like when you can discern, when your gut tells you that there's something wrong, or somebody tells you something, they tell your gut tells you it's a lie, like everything that comes out of Obama's mouth. Okay, but aside from that, the effects on the pineal gland, it basically shuts it down. Now, I have done a lot of research on a number of different topics that I'm working on right now for future upcoming shows with a lot of interesting guests that I'm going to have on here talking about some of these things. But the pineal gland is basically our eye to our higher level of consciousness. And it goes part and parcel. It goes in tune with what Hitler did to dumb down the prison camps, because you can't think clearly. You can't get in touch with your higher level of conscience. You have no discernment. Your mind is cloudy. You just can't think clear. All makes sense to me. Now we get into the fibromyalgia and the fluoride causing arthritic symptoms. Remember what I had talked to you about earlier, folks? About the interesting comparison between fibromyalgia symptoms and fluoride poisoning symptoms. And yet when you go to the doctor, just like the dentist, Jesse, the dentist looks at you like you're crazy. Could you imagine going to a doctor saying, I've got pain, I've got arthritic symptoms, I've got this and that. I think it's fluoride poisoning.
Right.
He's going to look at you the same way that your dentist looked at you. He's going to say, what? No. It's fibromyalgia. We've got steroids we can put you on. We've got gold. We got all kinds of shots and all this. You know, when you were talking about your mother experiencing this thing, bless her heart, the expense was phenomenal. And eventually they got to the point, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, where they were out of options. The medical profession was out of options on her symptoms. And so they offered her, what was it that...
Her last and only option she had left was similar to a chemo treatment.
And the mortality on that was significantly high, wasn't it not?
The side effects mainly were death in a variety of different ways, and she decided it wasn't worth the risk. She'd rather be here than risk dying a year later or shortly thereafter. I mean, 6 months.
The side effects were death?
In a variety of
Are you
different...
telling... We got this wonderful new thing for you. Now, here's the main effects of it. Well, the main effects are just kind of maybe possible that it's 10% it might work. Now, the side effects are death.
Or vegetabilism. Similarities. They weren't worth going through chemo. She would rather live her life in pain every day than end up like that. So where we're at right now...
We weigh the options here. We have something that 10% of the time might work in laboratory rats. On the other side of the coin, the side effect is death or vegetabilism. Take your pick.
But the thing about this is that she would rather live a better quality of life than go through a chemo treatment and end up dead in 6 months to a year, okay? But the doctors stopped treatment on her because she refused that chemo. They didn't want to do anything for her anymore.
Okay. Now, another thing I want to touch on while we're on this topic, folks, is the damaging effects of fluoride in the bone. Evidently, when the body's trying to get rid of this poison, it puts it into the bone, making the bones more brittle. I remember back when I was younger, many years ago, that I don't want to make myself sound too old, but there was rarely a case, maybe professional athletes that had played football or baseball, I remember them having a hip replacement or a knee replacement. Now it's rampant. Now, in my sales field of going out and talking to retired people, and advising them on one thing or another, I find that the percentage of people that have had hip replacements or knee replacements, or that have, what is the name of that bone disease that comes in women, that I can't remember the name of it now, but it makes the bones brittle.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I just don't know the name.
And off the top of my head, I can't think of it. But bottom line is the amount of hip and knee replacements have gone through the roof. And if you think about it, the poisoning, fluoride poisoning, is great for the medical profession. The billions of dollars that are being made in treating people for fibromyalgia, for hip replacements, for joint replacement, knee replacements, and so forth. How many billions of dollars are being made by this? Do you think that might be one reason why they leave it in, even though their own reports say they know it's detrimental? Hip fractures in the elderly. High doses of fluoride, average 2.6 milligrams per day, were used in trials to treat patients with osteoporosis. That's the name. Okay, in an effort to harden their bones and reduce fractures, and it actually led to a higher number of fractures, particularly hip fractures, which, by the way, folks, a lot of you out there know that hip fractures in the elderly, okay, they have a hip fracture, 25% of them die in the first year. The other 75% never get back to normal. They're either in a wheelchair, they're in a walker, or they're in a nursing home. Okay? And again, cha-ching, the phenomenal amounts of money that are being spent on these treatments. Another reason why you think they might not be taking fluoride out of the water, even though they know it's damaging. And they propagandize the medical industry into telling us it's good for us. And I've seen many clips of people in the medical profession that, off the record, they will say that, yes, we know it's detrimental, but we don't want to talk about it. Okay, because if they talk about it, which many dentists have, they can actually get kicked out of the profession, lose their license, be kicked out of what they would call notable societies because they take an adverse stance on it.
Well, I actually read an article about fluoride and the view on who should use fluoride. And it said in there that it was specifically recommended for people who did not brush their teeth often, who couldn't visit a dentist very often. It wasn't for people like you and I who brush our teeth once, twice a day, or visit a dentist every 6 months.
Well, from what I've been able to ascertain, fluoride has nothing to do with the protection of your teeth. It's just a fallacy.
Yeah. You can protect your teeth by brushing them after you eat.
Don't forget to floss.
And flossing.
People with impaired kidney function are particularly vulnerable to bone damage because of their inability to effectively excrete fluoride. People with kidney disease are prone to accumulating high levels of fluoride in their bones and blood. Fluoride may cause bone cancer. A U.S. government-funded animal study found a dose-dependent increase in bone cancer in fluoride-treated male rats. As far as biologically, there's a difference biologically, but as far as the makeup of us as mammals, there's no difference. A rat has bones, blood, all that stuff, same thing, okay? Proponents have failed to refute the Bassin osteosarcoma study. I'm not going to get into that. Fluoride may cause reproductive problems. Fluoride administered to animals in high doses wreaks havoc on the male productive system. It damages sperm and increases the rate of infertility in a number of different species. Some individuals are highly sensitive to low levels of fluoride, shown by case studies and double-blind studies. The symptoms include fatigue, headache, rashes, stomach, and gastrointestinal tract problems. Other subjects of population are more vulnerable to fluoride's toxicity. Infants, there's incidences of diabetes mellitus, diabetes insipidus, malnutrition. There is no margin of safety, folks. There is no margin of safety for the several health effects. No one can deny, including the government, that high natural levels of fluoride damage health. Millions of people in India and China have had their health compromised by fluoride, and the real question is whether there is an adequate margin of safety between the doses shown to cause harm in published studies. And you also have to ask yourself, why is it that so many countries around the globe are actually pulling fluoride out of the water and saying it's unsafe to drink, yet our country isn't?
I have something to say here. The average person drinks 8 glasses of water a day, or that's what's recommended. At 5 parts per million, that's 5 milligrams per liter. 8 glasses of water a day is about the equivalent of a 2 liter. At that rate, the average person is consuming 10 milligrams of fluoride per day, drinking 8 glasses of just water. That doesn't include what's in your food, your toothpaste, anything else that you're consuming.
Well, as you can see, in getting ready to close this out, now there's something else I want to add. There's a few more in here, folks, that I'm not even going to get into, but I want to emphasize. Go into our website at the well, you're already in there watching this, but flip over to the videos and watch the video under fluoride, the Great Culling. By Chris Maple. He produced it. It's about an hour and a half. A lot of this stuff some of the stuff that I mentioned is in there, but it goes way far and beyond that. Okay, and take into consideration, if you put hydrofluorosilicic acid on cement, which happened up in Chicago, there was an accident that there was a truck that was carrying this fluoride that got into an accident and it spilled on the pavement. Okay. And Hazmat had to come out and clean it up. And the pictures, and you can go look this up on Google, folks. You can go Google it. The cement, I mean, it actually ate into the cement. They want us to ingest that into our body. Hello, I'm sorry. Am I wrong here? But taking it a step further, back earlier when we were talking about you going to the grocery store, and we're talking about the fluoride in the water. I had watched a video clip where they were testing the fluoride in the water and also the pH in the water. And I ran across something very interesting, Jessica. You go to the grocery store and you'll see probably a whole shelf full or half a shelf full. It's in the soda rack and the juice rack. You'll see all these different kinds, artesian water and Nestle's water, and I don't remember all the different names of them. But they're all pretty much about the same price. The Nestle's and the I can't remember. It's called
Aquafina.
Aquafina, there it is. They're all $4.99 for 24
They
bottles.
average between $4 and $5 a case.
But then you look at Fiji, or you look at Evian, and they're 3 times as expensive.
It was $12 for a 6-pack of 1 liter bottles.
$12 for 1 liter bottles, and the little bottles I think are what are the 11 ounces of the Nestle or whatever. Number one,
Yeah.
and Jesse Ventura did a report on this. They're actually pulling this water out of the Ogallala aquifers that's owned by T. Boone Pickens. The Great Lakes, they're draining the Great Lakes, putting it through a filter, and putting it back in the water, and selling it back to us. I mean, they're selling it water that we could drink. Just go drink the water right out of the Great Lakes, or run it through a Berkey water filter or whatever.
Right, I was just going to say.
But we're buying this water back. So you go into the grocery store and you're looking at this, and they're all about the same price-wise. But then you go look at Fiji, or you go look at Evian, and they're, 3 or 4 times as expensive. Well, guess what, folks? I found out why. Most of these waters that come out of the Great Lakes, the Ogallala Aquifer, or the, they're in Arizona or Las Vegas or whatever, the pH factor is very low. The body functions on a pH factor of about 7, I think 7.3 or something like that. And anything below that is acidic. Anything over that is alkaline. Now, in the course of my research and study, I found out that cancer just has a field day in any element, biological thing, human being or otherwise, that is acidic. So the water that you're drinking that's costing $4, $5, $6 a case is acidic. A lot of the foods that you eat are acidic foods. Cancer thrives in that, okay? Yet you raise your pH level above that, quit eating the acidic foods and go into alkaline foods and alkaline water. Guess what? According to the reports that I've read, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to say, oh, this cures cancer. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, according to these reports, if you have cancer, the cancer will stop because it has nothing to feed on. Now, if that's true, and it may very well be, think of the billions and billions and billions of dollars that are being spent on chemotherapy, on cobalt radiation therapy, okay, and people that are being literally made sick by ingesting fluoride, eating high acidic foods and drinking acidic water. Do you think it's possible that this is another reason why they're doing this? It's because it's feeding the medical industry?
Well, I don't know, because now people are required by law to have Obamacare, right?
Add Obamacare into the mix, okay? And we could do a whole other show.
Well, it just all kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the case, okay, here, but it would make sense as far as the fluoride being added to the water to, drive the cost of medical up, when we're now being forced to buy medical insurance.
We're being forced to buy medical insurance, pay higher deductibles, pay a higher premium, and to be treated for these conditions that they are imposing on us by looking the other way or by outright fraud and fictitious reports that are coming out, like the Mellon Institute, to put this industrial waste in our water. And it doesn't stop there. Again, a show for another day. I just watched a video on the pharmaceutical industries last night. They're poisoning us, folks. They're poisoning us in our water. They're poisoning us with GMOs in our food. They're poisoning the air with chemtrails. They're poisoning us with vaccines. They're poisoning us with pharmaceuticals. And Jesse, in closing, I'm going to give you a thought. You know what hit me last night?
What's that?
Is that up to this point, the American people have not been very awake. Now, there are some of us that are very awake, but the vast majority of the American people, they want to believe that the government is a benevolent government. And I can understand that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yet, we look at what's going on in other parts of the world. And in other parts of the world, they are literally in your face. They are bombing they used depleted uranium, and they basically just ruined the country of Iraq, killed over 1 million people, displaced 4 million people. They're doing the same thing in Afghanistan. They did the same thing in Libya. They tried to do the same thing in Syria. And ironically, there's only a handful of countries in the world that aren't participating in this global governance banking system. And those just coincidentally happen to be the same countries that George Bush talked about when he said the axis of evil. They're evil because they don't participate. Now, my point with that is this, and I could do another show on that as well, but my point is this, is that over there, they're in your face. They make no bones about bombing, drone strikes, depleted uranium, killing those people. Over here, they're doing it in a soft kill instance. They're poisoning us slowly with the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe. And folks, if you haven't already, go look up Georgia Guidestones. There's a monument in Georgia that talks about their plan, talks about what they intend to do. Okay? They want to decrease the population worldwide into 500 million or less. Do you just think that this is part of the agenda? Jesse, thanks for accompanying me on the ride today.
As always.
We'll be back next week, same time, same station, with another report for your ingestion and your research pleasure. Have a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you on my birthday. Bye for now.